Hi, Pac Northwest Conference. This is Jill Riley with Chris Eltrich. We are here to talk about a missions trip that Leonard Street Covenant Church was able to make in July and took 64 of the congregation, which
Yeah.
is a significant percentage of your congregation, isn't it?
Yeah, that is an administrative task, let me tell you.
Yes, indeed.
This was our third all church. So what we do is every few years, we encourage a trip, a cross-cultural experience across the generation. So the trip has to be designed to have our youngest and our oldest and everybody in between. So I like to say that the purpose is never to be like effective in
Mhm.
the sense of like getting stuff done. The purpose
Right.
is to be vulnerable and to experience a different culture, to learn from local ministries. So we've been to Panama. And then we've been to this location in Mexico two times, which we
Okay.
have a personal connection to this particular spot through a woman in our church who's
Okay.
grew up there.
How does it help you as a body grow, and how does it help
Mm,
individuals learn about being the body?
so many ways. I'll just say I have been cynical of short-term mission. I think I've been part of that generation in the early 90s that was part of doing it, kind of swoop into Tijuana or whatever and feel like you're doing something and then you leave and you don't really think about it. So I've
Right.
been very against that in my own ministry. And
Hmm.
at the same time, I realized that I've benefited in certain ways from those experiences. So we're trying to do it differently, but there's no substitute for actually going someplace different and
Right.
being on the ground. In this particular, say, political climate that we're in, with lots of rhetoric against our neighbors to the south and now to the north too, but um,
Right. Everywhere.
with immigration issues and things like that, I think that we do a good job in our church speaking to those things in the biblical view of God's love of neighbor and our
Hmm.
responsibility as the church. I think if you were to ask my kids or the children in our church, is it good to love your neighbor? Our Mexican sisters and brothers in Christ, if they're part of our family, right? They would all say yes. It's a very different thing to actually then go experience a real
Yes.
person and to share a meal with them and to work alongside them. The benefit I would think is we interfaced with people in a different language and culture
Hmm.
and brought those relationships home, brought those experiences home. We're in
Yeah.
a place
Yeah.
called
Right.
San Felipe Del Progreso. One cool story about this place, you could look it up. It's called Mission Masawa. The Masawa people are an indigenous in this one location. And what was interesting is where we stayed is a 300-year-old, it was a Spanish fort. So if you just think back, the Spanish came in and kind of colonialized this place,
Right.
basically made the Masawa people learn Spanish. It was kind of an oppressive historical boot mark in that spot.
Right.
Then it went fallow for a long time, and a Christian organization bought it. And one of the cool things that they do is that they now retrain and reteach the Masawa language and culture and dance in that very same footprint. And then they
Wow.
house camps for kids. They house missionary groups like ours to come in. And you're literally in this 300-year-old Spanish walled little fort thing. So, like, if we had a group that was ages 3 to 73. Remember back when, Jill, you had small kids, and if you were going to bring them to this place you'd never been to before, and
Right.
where's my 4-year-old going to wander off to? Like, it was really cool to be in literally a walled place that they couldn't get too far. And, we would have common meals, and we were able to host some community events there too, with some of the local churches that we made connections with. So it was awesome.
That is great. So, what other kind of tasks did you guys do while you were working with this organization?
We broke into three teams and worked with three different organizations. One was a local church. They were running their own VBS style. It was like a kids carnival for a week, and we came in with our energy and crafts and ideas and things like that, and worked with them on that site. Uh,
Chris,
com-
do you do arts and crafts?
oh, Jill, I wasn't even there. I wasn't even there. Then at a different site, we worked with this organization called World Access Project, which we've been connected to for years and years. And what they do in a nutshell is they bring in wheelchairs donated from all over the world. They refurbish them, wheelchairs, walkers, canes, things like that, mobility devices, and then they distribute those to people in need, and they train them on how
Hmm.
to use the stuff. So teenage boys that know how to work on mountain bikes can rock a wheelchair. That with just a little training, they're changing bearings and fixing brakes and things like that. So that was really awesome to see them thrive in that way. And then with some rudimentary Spanish, we were able to help in distribution and building some ramps. So like a lot of things aren't ADA. So if you are in a rural place with cobblestone streets and you get a wheelchair, you can't even get into your house. So we
Right.
widened doorways and created ramps and things like that.
Wow.
So that was the second project. And then the third project where I was personally was that English camp that I was talking about. It was housed at a Christian school outreach. And I worked with teenagers from our church to run a sports camp part of that event. You were asking the benefit of going on a trip. I'll tell you the second benefit is vulnerability. I 50-year-old dude who hasn't played soccer in a while went out with these kids and I twisted my ankle like in the first hour. So there I am. I'm supposed to be running sports camp. I can barely walk. But the teenagers that we brought helped me plan the whole thing. And I said, hey, you guys are up. I'll be over here like cheering you on and praying for you. Super vulnerable for me who likes to be active and likes to be a doer. Thinking about our group, we have like the chair of philosophy at a university. We have school principals and nurses and doctors and dentists and engineers, and their competency is high back home. But
Hmm.
when we go into a setting like this, everybody's vulnerable. And everybody has to work together and make an effort with choppy Spanish to connect with people. And I think that's where, in that interface, where our strengths are kind of exposed as weaknesses there, that's where the Lord comes in and really
Yeah.
works. And
Yeah.
that's a beautiful part of a trip like this.
What does having all of these people go on this trip do for the ethos and culture and mission of Lettered Streets?
It reinforces intergenerational ministry, which is something that's important to our ethos anyway. But again, when you're in a vulnerable setting like that, it's oftentimes the kids that rise to the top, not just those teenagers who ran
Mm,
the sports camp, but the 5 and the 6 and the 7 year olds. They connect with local people way faster
yeah.
than a full grown adult, right? So kids being not just peripherally part of, oh, we're empowering you. No, they are the power, right? So coming back home, it just reiterates that, hey, let's have kids have more voice, have more visibility in front of the church. So that's a big piece. Another big piece is we got back, and 2 weeks later we're invited by a Latino church here in Bellingham, who they every year they run a fair for their children, but it's really to attract families there because they have social services booths all around.
Mm,
And it's for immigrants, primarily Latino immigrants, but also some Ukrainian and Russian immigrants. And they come to this thing and they learn about, where the food bank is and where Opportunity Council is and all of these social services. And this year, they were very nervous about even putting it on. There's been ICE raids at our local roofing company just down the street. 49 men were taken before work one day. So the issues are hot and live right here. And so they asked us as their white brothers and sisters in Christ, would you come volunteer at this event? It would make us feel safer if you were there. And so we were like, we just came back from Mexico. It's like, of course we will do this. So that was really empowering for our folks who've been practicing their Spanish and feeling like, where do I put all of this? Well, there's opportunities right in our own backyard.
thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Jill. Bless you. Our middle school right now is 25 or 27, and high school is a little bit smaller. Yeah, a little light in the nursery right now, so we'll see what we can do about that. But I'm not helping. I'm